5 years ago, I started talking with folks, many in this room, about the need for a conversation about how to meet this moment. A moment of real movement-led advancements on climate and environmental justice, and a moment of severe backlash, in which we are losing ground on using the law to dismantle the impacts of structural racism and shift power. A year and a half ago, I joined Taproot Earth. At Taproot, our mission is to build power and cultivate solutions among frontline communities advancing climate justice and democracy. To this end, we convene and assemble a frontline formations. In fact, we have spent the beginning of this week advancing a climate action strategy with frontline leaders from throughout the Gulf South and Appalachia, many of whom are in this room. In April, we launched a resource formation, the Just Transition Lawyering Network, bringing together lawyers to flank the front lines. Taproot recognizes the need for organizers and law-trained allies, lawyers and scholars, to be in conversation about this moment. Thus, this summit was born. Through relationships among our hosts, the North Carolina Central University Law School Social Justice and Racial Equity Institute, the University of North Carolina School of Law Center for Civil Rights, Duke Law's Environmental Law and Policy Clinic, and Duke Center on Law, Race, and Policy, this summit found a home in Durham and at NCCU. I want to offer gratitude to everyone who contributed to this event and would ask folks to stand or wave if you're with us in the room. Thank you to everyone from NCCU, including Scott Holmes, Ansel Brown, Dean Nakia Davis, Terry Hyman, Karuna Nehraj, Starish Best, Demetria Robinson, Jada Anthony, and Anthony Glenn, as well as Dean Patricia Timmons-Goodson and Amber Kraft for our warm, warm welcomes. I want to thank our partners at Duke, Reich Longest, Michelle Nolan, Giovanni Martinez, and Trina Jones, and our partners at UNC, Maria Savasta Kennedy, Professor Ted Shaw, and Professor Danielle Purifoy. Thank you as well to our steering and planning committees. Over 50 organizers and lawyers and scholars honed the vision and contributed to planning for this event. I'm not seeing anyone waving or standing. Where are my planning and steering folks? It was a village. Thank you. I also want to thank the whole Taproot crew. Lots of folks are in the room. Please let yourself be known, Taproot crew. Thank you. Also our graphic recorder, Hope Tyson from A Visual Approach, Soze Productions at On Point, the student production assistants from NCCU, and then our Friday facilitation team, Esteban Kelly, Carrie Points, Destiny Lee, and Cielo Cruz. You'll meet them tomorrow. Every single person we have invited to play a role since we began this process had said yes. I offer thanks to all of you for your collaboration, to all who have joined us in person, and to all who've committed to connecting when we're able to do so online. Now, a few words before we begin our plenary. Walking into this space, we carry with us an awareness of conditions outside these walls, whether it be at home, in our neighborhoods, or across the globe. I wanted to share a few thoughts that I'm bringing with me as an Ashkenazi Jew whose family immigrated to this country from Europe and assimilated to whiteness and white privilege during the 19th and 20th centuries. I came fully into my identity as both a Jewish person and an advocate through my understanding of what Jews call tikkun olam, or repair of the world. True repair for me as an individual and for Jews as a people will never come at the expense of the oppression or dehumanization of others. I have known for many years that my healing and liberation are directly tied to the safety, self-determination, healing, and liberation of Palestine and of the Palestinian people. Knowing this led me to join the International Solidarity Movement in Gaza and the West Bank in 2002 and 2003. Though distant in time, the people and the land in the news today are familiar to me. Our hosts opened their homes to us throughout Gaza as we shared tea and coffee and listened to stories from Gaza City to Jabalia, through the middle area to Khan Yunis and Rafah. We were there to witness and to provide accompaniment and tracked by tanks as we escorted advocates and public officials to repair what was once a sweet water well, serving 250,000 souls, only to see that well destroyed the next day. The following year, we were welcomed by activists into Kolkilia on the West Bank. Spending a week in the city, the state of Israel has enclosed by a wall built to annex fertile farmland and the aquifer that feeds it. The words we used then were collective punishment, dehumanization, occupation, apartheid. All of these have led to the word for what is happening now, genocide. It is part of a cycle of violence that began long before the senseless deaths of October 7th. It is fed by dollars and weaponry flowing from the US to the state of Israel and feeds the militarization of our own police forces that are killing Black, brown, and indigenous people here in the US. The call for a ceasefire now is a call to halt an active genocide and to let Gaza live. The call for a ceasefire now must also be a call to demilitarize globally and defund the police here at home. But I know that the West Bank has water, and that while Gaza once held sweet water too, it still has gas. And I know that the Democratic Republic of Congo has cobalt and coltan and lithium, and 7 million internally displaced people, and the largest number of UN-verified grave violations against children for the third year running, amid escalating violence. Sudan has gold, Myanmar has water. West Papua has oil, gas, gold, and copper. Chile and Argentina have lithium. The Gulf South has oil and gas. Appalachia has coal. And tribal lands throughout the American West and Arctic have critical minerals, precious metals, and uranium. Land, water, and energy. Each of these is life-sustaining, and the extraction of each is fueled by and facilitates colonialism and racialized capitalism, another cycle of violence that devalues the lives of color from the global south to the Gulf South. Throughout the world, social movements are fighting for reparative and transformative solutions to shift this balance of power. We at Taproot unapologetically believe in a world where the front lines can live, rest, and thrive in the places we love. And end the expansion of fossil fuels. Community stewardship of land, water, and energy. The right of self-governance and self-determination for indigenous, oppressed, and frontline communities everywhere. And a vision that we can truly achieve climate justice by centering Black liberation. And so here we are. The journey to the summit started 5 years ago when I and other folks in this room from Conservation Law Foundation, Alternatives for Community and Environment, Green Roots, and Neighbor to Neighbor, and a host of other partners were advocating for an environmental justice bill for Massachusetts. We knew, as we have been taught by many here today, that moving towards environmental justice means directly addressing environmental racism. We explicitly designed the bill to mandate the very simple step of enhancing public participation in environmental review in environmental justice communities. For 3 legislative sessions, we were met with backlash led by one senator who resisted the notion that race is the single most relevant criteria in this country for identifying who is disproportionately impacted by environmental and climate harms, and who insisted that the bill was unconstitutional. Folks here and at home said no, signing on to a public letter with an analysis supported by the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and Lawyers for Civil Rights, stating that the bill's approach was constitutional and necessary. This letter helped bring along the Attorney General's office, the governor, and legislative leadership, and in 2021, Massachusetts got its first environmental justice law. Over the past 5 years, we've seen major advancements in climate and environmental justice led by Black, brown, and indigenous movements throughout the US. Passage of 21 statutes on environmental justice by 13 states since 2020. Passage of climate laws in states like New York and Illinois intended to direct resources to the communities most impacted. Passage of a state environmental constitutional amendment for New York, and the leverage of Montana's amendment through climate accountability litigation. And at the federal level, issuance of new executive orders and the dedication of billions of dollars exclusively for disadvantaged communities. I also know that there's an EJ executive order newly issued for North Carolina as well. We also saw frontline communities halting pipelines around the globe, moving the conversation on loss and damage to ensure that the people most affected by our extractive economy are at the center of our solutions. At the same time, our legal landscape has shifted in the US in the past few years in direct response to winds shaped by the people who need them most. a debt cancellation program for black farmers who have experienced decades of discrimination by the US Department of Agriculture was struck down as the result of 7 lawsuits brought by white farmers claiming racial discrimination. The US Supreme Court has overturned decades of precedent and ruled affirmative action unconstitutional. Then Louisiana Attorney General and now Governor Landry took a shot at Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 through a lawsuit that led to the closure of 3 environmental justice complaints in Louisiana and has a chilling effect on civil rights enforcement nationally. And while we celebrate the law and organizing win in Allen v. Milligan, through which the US Supreme Court struck down a voting map disenfranchising black Alabamans, that fight continues in Alabama as well as South Carolina, Texas, and beyond. This summit is an opportunity to take stock, assess the current legal and movement landscapes, and collectively create and craft a vision to press forward. We hope we can use this time to weave a collective story of our current conditions, cultivate a shared analysis, and build movement standards towards a just transition. Today is for sharing information and working towards that shared analysis, starting with a conversation to ground us in North Carolina, its history, and this moment. With that, I would like to invite to join me Donna Chavis and Professor Ted Shaw.